Yeah, earlier today, we officially announced the project that's been going on for quite some time. The business is called Anzu Robotics, and we have some new products that bring into the drone space. You maybe have seen the video or seen some articles about it, but today we want to dive deeper into what the technology is, how we got here, and really give you the whole story behind it. And then again, the Q&A session at the end is going to be probably the most valuable because I feel like we've covered a lot of the details of what we have done and what we're doing, but there could be things that you're really interested in or the market's really interested in that we haven't covered or hasn't been, uh, bold and out there. So feel free to ask those questions and we'll get to them at the end. Again, my name is Randall Warnes. Brad, I realized this just at the end that I didn't have you on here as well. Brad's here. Brad's going to be helping us talking through the software stuff, but we'll get to who Brad is and what his contribution and his team's contribution to this whole project is shortly. But again, Randall Warnes, I've been in the space 10 years in June, jumping around between different manufacturers of drone technology and been part of the reseller space and had my hands on a lot of different things. But I feel extremely fortunate to be part of this project. And I first start with my email address just because if you want to reach out to me, if you have questions about any of this stuff after this webinar and going on in the future, I want you to be able to reach out to me directly. So feel free to do so. I try to be good at responding and taking in feedback. So please leverage that as we move forward. But today was an important day for a team of people that have been trying to put together a pretty complex puzzle, which is launching new drone technology into the commercial space. And today we launched the Anzu Raptor and the Raptor T. And I think that what we built is something that answers a lot of the questions and a lot of the concerns that have been shaping the drone space over the last few years. So I want to give you kind of the high level details about what the product is and what it can do, and also talk a little bit more about the security of data, which is really at the heart and soul of what Anzu Robotics is and what we're trying to do differently. So that should move. There we go. Didn't move very well, but what we've done is licensed leading technology in the drone space to give a very familiar, very high quality experience when flying commercial drones. So this isn't like this isn't a test of whether we could build drones better as far as spec by spec, but rather if we can eliminate some of the things about drones that otherwise preclude people from purchasing them, from using them, and from building around them long term. So we have two platforms, the Raptor and the Raptor T. The Raptor is a RGB capture, more survey mapping, visual inspection type drone, where the Raptor T is a thermal capable product. These are the foldable, portable type drones, and this is actually one of the first production units here, just arrived on my doorstep today. So some of the photos you're going to see are from prototype units from the past. We finally got in production units, and we'll start getting more photos and imagery and stuff from the drones, but just know that what you're looking at is what we could put together at the time. But again, foldable, portable, you have those kind of world-class specs as far as flight time goes, 45-minute, up to 45-minute flight time, 9-mile range of control. That's both the video feed back to you, as well as being able to control the drone and move it around. We have different accessories available. I think two of the points that are extremely important to highlight here are that remote ID is on board and ready to go, so it's going to be compliant out the gate. And then the geofencing thing, and Brad's going to talk more about compliance and things like that later. But there's a split of whether drones do or do not have this forced geofencing that doesn't allow you to fly in certain areas based off of airspace unless you submit some sort of request to have that unlocked. These drones have no geofencing built into them, so you're able to fly them where you need to fly them, when you need to fly them. However, it is the responsibility of the pilot to make sure that all of your operations are compliant with your local regulations. So just keep that in mind. We've taken off that restriction, but at the same time, it is a complex business when using the national airspace, and you should be qualified to do so, especially for commercial use. And then what Anzu Robotics is at the core is taking a US company, US owned entirely, and then doing that licensing of technology, manufacturing it, and we manufacture in Malaysia. We're quite open with that, and the componentry is mostly Malaysian sourced, not all of it, but mostly. And then we basically bring that to the United States, put US developed firmware and software on it, and then keep all your data on US servers. So that's really kind of the whole why we did it. And we'll talk a little bit more about the drones and the specs and then get into how we accomplished that. So, like I mentioned, two versions, the Raptor and the Raptor T. The Raptor being that RGB only capturing device. You have a 4/3 inch sensor with 20 megapixels, which should be great for any surveying and mapping missions with mechanical shutter. It's, of this class, it is what you would want and what you would expect for being kind of that top shelf type product for RGB capture for surveying and mapping. And then there's also a half-inch 12 megapixel sensor, which allows you for that hybrid zoom. So you could get up to 56 times zoom. So even if you're standing away from the object, you're able to zoom in and get more detail on the Raptor. On the Raptor T, that basically you're having that same capability. The quality of the RGB imagery is not going to be quite as good on the Raptor T as it is on the Raptor, but it does have that 640 by 512 high resolution long wave infrared sensor on there. So for thermal inspections, for search and rescue missions, doing night flights and things like that, thermal is going to be extremely important. And if you're unaware of the value of aerial thermal imaging, I've been touting that since 2015, working with drones with thermal sensors. So there's plenty of content that I've done in the past, and you can see lots of thought leadership that exists on the importance of aerial thermal imaging. But just know that we have both variations available here, and both of them have that 56x hybrid zoom on the RGB. So like I said, we didn't have drones for very long, so I captured what I could when I could. So you're able to see some of that 56x zoom on the left-hand side, looking at these telecommunications. There's a bird kind of perched on the left-hand side that you wouldn't see otherwise, but really what you'd be looking at is for disconnects of componentry of cables, tightness of bolts and things like that. That's all possible. And then just the smoothness of the image capture, the color saturation, all of those things, you'll find that is familiar. You'll find that it's high quality. I don't think that there's going to be any really any complaint or concern about the quality of the technology when it comes to data capture, when it comes to flight dynamics. All of it is going to be at the top of what's available in the drone space today. So like I said, there's not a lot of imagery that's out there because there haven't been a lot of these units to be flown around. So what you're seeing is kind of what I could capture in a short amount of time here to just give you an idea of what the imagery looks like. The controller itself, which I have one that I just barely took off the protective sticker, so there's no fingerprints on it yet. But the controller is also should be quite familiar, has a lot of robust capabilities, customizable buttons and things like that. But you're getting a built-in display. You don't have interchangeable battery, so it is all chargeable on the unit itself, but there's no way to have extra batteries. Just keep that in mind. Built-in microphone is going to be used for the loudspeaker. That is a optional accessory to put on this. You do have HDMI out, so you can put this up to a larger monitor for sharing with a larger audience. There's also ways to do that through Aloft, which we'll talk about shortly. And then I mentioned the range already, but you're getting up to 9 miles range of control with this RC paired with the Raptor and Raptor T units. So now let's talk about the challenge of taking drones that are manufactured, like I mentioned, in Malaysia. We take the hardware and then we bring that to the United States to be able to secure your data, to make sure that anything you capture is either hosted on your SD card or if there's data in the cloud, flight logs and things like that, that none of that can be taken or peered into by a third party without your authorization, without you knowing about it. We partnered with Aloft, formerly Kitty Hawk, if you've been in the space a long time, and worked with them on building this flight app, as well as leveraging all of the really good enterprise level attributes of Aloft air control, like flight logging and putting in notes and live streaming and things like that. So there's this cybersecurity question that is likely going to come up, and I feel like we're prepared to address it. So, Brad, if you could tell a little bit of the background about who Aloft is, what you've been doing since 2015, since you've been developing technology in the drone space, and then some of the features and things that make our app special as we build that together, and how we know that the data is secure. Yep, you're looking for unmuting, maybe, or do I need to ask to what? You should be able to. You should be unmuted.
I'm unmuted now. Thank you, Randall. We're good.
Brother. Sorry about that. And I skipped ahead trying to click off of it. What in the world? There we go.
No problem. Yeah, Brad Llewellyn with Aloft, head of product here. I think most of you know us. We do the vast majority of Lance authorizations in the US. We've been providing drone management, fleet management, and airspace management services for a number of years. Our customers are really some of the largest and most complex operations you'll see out there. We cover kind of every vertical that's out there: utilities, first responders, DOTs, construction engineering, media, insurance, you name it. We've got customers in that space. I've been doing that for a number of years. And I think before I go on, I just wanted to kind of highlight something that Randall said that underpins this whole thing is our security posture. ISO 27001, SOC 2 Type 2 certifications, all data on US servers. Data is encrypted in transit and at rest. I just think that this aligns really well with the mission at Anzu and the Raptor drones.
So, Brad, if I could ask, what does it mean to be FAA audited? Like, who gets FAA audited and why do they do it?
Yeah, so we work closely with the FAA. We're probably the leading UAS service supplier out there because we're doing so many Lance authorizations, and obviously there are stringent qualifications. They want to know that hey, if we're given information that's relevant to national airspace back and forth with these UAS service suppliers, we want to audit you, know that your data is secure and that it's not going anywhere.
And then kind of a follow-up on that is if you could talk a little bit about Lance, and there could be people that are joining from Canada, Europe, South America, Asia, like all over the world, right? So it's not necessarily going to be the same. So if you could also talk about how Aloft works internationally, if at all, and what that might look like. But if you could just give a brief underscore of what Lance is and how that works.
Yeah, so Lance is essentially getting authorization to fly in controlled airspace in the US, right? And there are a couple different types of Lance. There's the instant approval. Again, we do the vast majority of all those, or further coordinated Lance, which occasionally needs to happen if you're in a 0-foot grid and you need to get approval by the tower or something like that. And we facilitate all that. Probably do 75%, 80% of all of those authorizations in the US. Internationally, we're certainly moving into international. We've got some international countries like in Europe paying close attention to U-Space and what's going on with the EASA over there, Australia, Canada, things like that, all areas that we're moving into. But right now the focus is US based.
Yeah, and I say that just because even though we are a lot of it is talking about this US centric concept, it's important domestically here, to have that ownership and to have that security level, which I think translates to the rest of the world. But some of the features that Brad is going to be talking about with Aloft is going to translate beyond the Lance stuff, beyond air control or airspace management, where we're going to talk about fleet management and things like that. So first, if we could talk a little bit about the flight app and really like the familiarity of it, the things that might be special about it, if anything, and the things that might be, that might be different than what someone might expect.
Sure. So yeah, it's based on air control, which again has been out there for a number of years. We've got hundreds of thousands of users. We serve recreational pilots. We serve the most sophisticated enterprise customers with complex operations, advanced operating procedures. So it really runs the gamut. Again, well-established, largest user base out there. The flight app that comes pre-installed on the controller, as you know, and for the very basics, you could just check airspace. Like it's our same airspace map, it's our same weather. You can check airspace weather, tap fly, and go. Like there's out of the box, you can just tap it and fly without even signing up for air control, just for the basics. And again, I just want to go back to something you said earlier. No geofencing. We heard from so many customers that are like, my drone won't take off. You don't basically you don't have to find yourself grounded where you're trying to unlock that geofencing so you can fly. But I do want to get into, by signing into an air control account, you'll have access to a ton of additional features. It includes a web dashboard in addition to the mobile app.
Yeah, so I think, it's important for us to note that you do not need to register your drone. You can purchase it and fly it offline, and no one needs to know that it's even owned. When you register your drone, not only are you able to get access to a bunch of different things, but you're also now starting your warranty period. So it's important, and all that gets retained when you do that is a serial number and a start date. So it's not like we are attaching a lot of your personal data, company data, email, phone number, any of that to that registration. It's really just saying, okay, this drone has now been registered at this date, so we can do warranty. So you shouldn't necessarily fear the registration, but you can fly entirely unregistered. You will have a flight app like this and be able to control your drone, capture your data, take it home, all of that. But like Brad mentioned, there's a lot of things that Aloft does that maybe are going to be beyond nice to have. Sometimes they're necessary for your organization's operations, and so we can talk a little bit about those. So Brad, I pulled up that mobile features stuff. What a part of this is going to be standard, like if someone just registers and starts flying their drone, what they're going to see, and then what things would be part of maybe like an enterprise level user of air control?
Yeah, good question. So, and going back to something you said, you deactivate your warranty registration when you first open it up. All that's pre-login, pre-anything. All it does is take the serial number off the drone, sends it back to Anzu, and that way we know that drone is now active. You can then go fly. By signing up for an air control account, we do have a free account that's limited for solo kind of recreational pilots and such, limited feature set. But if you're getting into team management and some of the more advanced functionality, then we've got your enterprise subscription. So with kind of the basic app, airspace and weather, as soon as you have the air control account, free or enterprise, you can get Lance authorizations, either instant or for the coordinator, like I said. Again, we need to have people, if you're a part of an organization, we want you on an enterprise account so you can then see all of those Lance authorizations, making sure that all the pilots on your team are compliant. You get to review those in a singular place, that kind of thing. Have the ability for the pilots to complete those checklists and risk assessments. And I can dive in a little bit more if you like, but essentially, at Aloft, we're all about enabling flight, but we also want to make sure that everybody's safe and compliant, right? We want there to put it in the pilot's hand, but let's do our checklists and risk assessments. It's better for the community. It's how we get to do more things with drones, and it moves the industry forward, right? So safety, compliance, doing your checklist, making sure you're A, you've maintained the drone properly. B, how's my risk? How am I feeling today? What's the operational surroundings around me, and things like that. We produce a risk score, gives you some feedback on what you're about to embark on.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Brad. Sorry.
No, I was going to move on, but what were we
I
going
was
to
gonna talk about the pre-flight checklist. So, me as somebody that's been in the periphery of using these for a very long time, I'm not a service provider. I'm a Part 107 pilot, but I'm not like that guy. Something that I can say and attest to what has been built here is it's very familiar. When you take off the drone for the first time, you're like, oh, this is what it feels like to fly a very high quality, very mature flight stack. The app itself is also very, very familiar. You know where your navigating buttons are. You have most of the features that are expected, and we'll talk a little bit about features shortly. But the thing that was unusual or not, typically in my workflow is that from the controller, the manufacturer of the product is saying, here's your pre-flight checklist. I asked you, you could just skip through all this stuff, right? That's me being a negligent, not a professional user of drones. That's not what my job is. But they're customizable. You can make them so they suit your organization. They answer the questions that your organization is looking for before you fly. Kind of talk about what things are possible and what things you see organizations using those customizations for so that they can show compliance and grow their programs.
Yeah, great question. So, like, if you think about the different customers, you may have a first responder who needs to get in the air immediately, wants to fly ad hoc. I don't have time to fill out a lot of paperwork. I got to get it up in the air and I got to get going. I may skip my checklist or whatever and do it as a post flight or as a post mortem, right? I need to get in the air and get going. On the other hand, we got folks doing nuclear inspections, right? They plan their missions. They do planning checklists from the web days in advance. Then they request the mission. Then they get approval for the mission. Then they go out there and they do more risk assessments when they're there. And all of that can be very structured. And those checklists and risk assessments can be required by their administrators to say, no, you got to complete this before you can move on. So it kind of runs I've kind of limited, kind of giving you both ends of the spectrum. The platform will accommodate either, you want to lock it down so your pilots are, definitely doing these things, or you want to give them a little bit more autonomy and the ability to go fly whenever they want to.
Right. So I guess what I would say to anyone that's using Anzu Robotics product for the first time, unregistered, it'll just be like flying anything that you've flown before. There's not gonna be barriers, but there's not gonna be these other things that are possible, and you don't have your warranty. You register, not an enterprise account. There's going to be some customization, pre-flight, post-flight stuff. It's going to show weather, different maps, stuff like that. When you have an enterprise account, there's lots of other things that, here we mentioned here on the mobile side, video streaming. So that's been something that I think at the start of my manufacturing career, there were organizations that would put like a LTE thing in a big box and they'd sell it for like 30 grand. And that's how you were able to stream stuff to other platforms. Now it's an important concept, but can you talk about the security of that streaming? How do you access it? Is it via a URL, or how do you share that to people within your organization? Just briefly, if you could cover kind of that live streaming component of it.
Sure. So it's as simple as when you're in flight, it's as simple as there's a little stream button and you click it on and it starts to stream in your account. If you flip to the next slide, you can kind of see in the upper right there's 4 streaming dashboards. So you can stream up to 4 on one browser at a time. You can have multiple browsers, multiple streams. You can basically looking at a single operation from multiple viewpoints. You could look at multiple operations that are going on all at the same time. All of those, you can focus on one or the other. All of that is encrypted. It's encrypted live streaming, so you don't have to worry about that going anywhere. We do have the ability, though, to share that. This is within the Aloft air control dashboard securely. We can also create a secure link that you could share out, say, within an enterprise command center, right? So that somebody's not even a registered air control user can view that in their big dashboard in that command center. So, and that's temporal too. We can also, it's limited again for security purposes, encrypted and limited. Lets people see outside the organization.
So if someone is not an enterprise user of air control, do they still have any use or need for web dashboard? Do they have access to a web portal if they are not enterprise, or is that only for enterprise users?
So there's a free account that is basically for a single, pretty much recreational pilot, right? And live streaming isn't included in that. The enterprise version is for managing a team of pilots. If you're a single user, you can use air control for free. Basically, again, for recreational purposes, we want to enable flight. Let's let these recreational pilots go out there and fly compliantly and get their lands. It'll track their flights. It does some basic things like that. It'll track, you can still see hours on your aircraft and all of those other things. But, from an enterprise, the main difference between enterprise, one of the prime differences between enterprise and free is multiple users, right? So if I've got an organization with 10 users and I want a central place to look at all of that, that's enterprise, right? The reporting dashboard that goes along with it that, allows you to slice and dice the data any way you want to. I can see how many missions were done by this team, or how many inspections and missions or survey missions did I do over this period of time. That's all enterprise. Video streaming enterprise. Again, a lot of the API custom airspace. So we have, what we consider to be, the leading airspace out there, with not only national airspace, but local airspace through our geo portal. You can also create your own custom airspace, so that if there's areas that you're allowed to fly or you don't want your team flying, you can create custom airspace, also an enterprise feature.
Yeah, so basically when you have a drone program, you want to know who are pilots, who are certified, who are flying what drones are attributed to what person, how many flight hours they have on each drone, what missions that they've flown, what data they've found and tagged inside of each of these images. All of that is a part of this dashboard, and that's something that is very easy to access when you're an Anzu Robotics user.
Exactly. Yeah. So team management, with different roles, you can have, an administrative role, a chief pilot role. Pilots in training can have more limited permissions and things like that. But yeah, to your point, it's going to track pilot certs, aircraft registration, aircraft maintenance, remote ID compliance. As you mentioned, these come, already remote ID enabled. Alerts to go along with that, so you can know when somebody's coming up on renewal, for example. Alerts for mission approvals, like I mentioned earlier, with, hey, this mission was just requested, this mission was just approved, all of that.
And if you have a mixed fleet, I would say for you, Aloft is drone agnostic. We don't own Aloft, and Aloft does not own us. But if you have a fleet of a bunch of different manufacturers of drones, these would all be applicable to, I mean, when I say all, I can't say all because I don't know, but the majority of manufacturers are represented within Aloft, and you could track all of that as well, right?
Correct. Yeah, we support, we have a variety of integrations, and support a variety of drones. We definitely consider ourselves drone agnostic. And even if you want to fly, your homemade drone that we don't support, you can still do a manual flight log, so that you're tracking hours for that pilot against that particular aircraft, and things like that. So we're tracking the, cycles on that battery. So all that's handled. We may not get the rich telemetry in like we can with the Raptor, but the basics are we're still tracking flight hours, and hops.
So the important thing, I mean, we talked about a lot of the features that Aloft has enabled, not only on the flight control app, but also on the mole and website. But the really important part for that everyone should understand is Aloft is really in charge of, or ensuring that your data is secured and they get checked and audited, and so they are certified to, they were, what I've said before is they were good enough yesterday, so they should be good enough today. The FAA looks at them, and the certification bodies. So, Aloft is providing a lot of features and a lot of really important stuff that can make your enterprise work more efficiently, and you could be more compliant. But also, just don't get it lost that it's about data security. And for anyone knowing that this is manufactured in our drones are manufactured in Malaysia, and then we take them to the US and we put software on them, that there's no leaking of that data. And we're going through currently a third-party penetration test, and that should validate the claims that we're not finding anything. But I just wanted to say that and make sure that it's not like Aloft is doing these really cool features. They are, but the really important thing is that they have been securing drone data for a long time.
Yeah, we like to think that security is our number one feature, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, Brad, we're going to definitely bring you back in when we're talking about Q&A, because I'm sure there's going to be more questions. I'm going to get through the rest of the hardware related stuff. On the Anzu products out the gate, you do have access to two additional accessories: the RTK module, which is going to give you greater accuracy of flight and greater accuracy of your collected data. So you can get centimeter accuracy on with the RTK module, as well as a loudspeaker that allows you to communicate to outside parties through the RC, and then out through the loudspeaker. So those are things that I just want to make you aware that those are fully built in and integrated within the Anzu Robotics platforms. Um, I guess you're kind of back on this, Brad, but the data security stuff, the encryption should be what you would expect with how data is handled. And then, like Brad mentioned, their ISO 27001 and their SOC 2 Type 2 certification is kind of passed along to the product via Aloft when you're flying with air control. That data is secured with their certified stuff. Your data is housed not on Anzu servers, not on other servers, but they are Aloft servers. This is part of the process of using air control, is your data is housed there. And then the US elements of things where Anzu Robotics is a company, US owned, our services here, our support centers are here. And then again, using those Aloft servers to house the data. Something to note on the penetration test is that because we just got production units yesterday, they should be receiving the third party that is doing the penetration test should be receiving units today, and we expect that that's going to take a week, 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, I think is what they said. So I want to be clear to anyone that's here, that's listening, that's excited about what we're doing. We're trying to make sure that we hear back from this penetration test that everything is good and your data is secure before you're starting to fly, before you have one in your hands. We have units, but if you're like, I want one tomorrow, we are going to try our best to hold off any end user using our stuff until that penetration test is done. So that should be sometime around the start of May. But I just want to be clear about that it's really important for us to say our data is secure and to prove our data is secure so that, we're not trying to pull anything back. But Brad, as I've said to you and the Aloft team, if Aloft has done the job that we set out to do and you guys feel confident that you've done it, then there should be no concerns. Anything you want to add to any of that? I know you're muted. You could just give a thumbs up if you want, but you can. Okay, cool. So one thing that is not necessarily unusual, but something that drone users should be aware of or would be aware of is that we include a care program with every purchase of an Anzu Robotics drone, rather than leave it in the hands of a purchaser or end user to decide whether you do or don't want to add this year of protection. We just included it in the price of the drones, which we'll talk about in a second. This is basically just going to give you peace of mind when you have an unforeseen accident, no matter the cause of that accident, that you have you have repair services, that you have replacement services, and that you have technical support when you need it. So those things are all available to you if you purchase a drone, whether you knew it or not, and is a 1-year program. I just wanted to make sure that that is understood, that peace of mind is out there, because largely the folks that are here will be, likely the early adopters of this stuff, and you should be, informed and aware that if something happens, that you do have some coverage and that you should take advantage of that. So when it comes to pricing, the Anzu Raptor RGB no thermal is $5,099. Again, that comes with the drone, the RC, the anything you need to charge, battery, propeller. So you're out of the box. You're going to be able to conduct all the flights that you need. The RTK module and loudspeaker are additional accessories. Comes with the 1 year of Anzu care, and then the only thing that would not be included in that is if you upgraded your service through air control with Aloft, which is an additional charge. Brad, do you have like ballpark, or can you talk about how you would like people to communicate with you and your team if they don't reach out to us directly about the upgrade? And you're still muted, just FYI. I have to do it? That's crazy. Okay, there you go. Nope. There you go.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Just reach out to sales at aloft.ai. That's the easy way to do it.
Okay, but I'll say from what I know, this isn't like an astronomical additional fee. It's not like we're talking about thousands. We're talking about hundreds. I think that's fair to say over the course of a year.
Yep.
But yeah, so if you want an enterprise account, sales at aloft.ai, right? Yes.
Yep.
.ai would be the place to talk to them about upgrading that. Otherwise, no hidden fees, no subscription model for flying your drones and doing your stuff unless you want enterprise. with those air control features. It says ready to ship now. Like truly, we have units ready to serve you. I have two of them that arrived at my doorstep today, which are the first ones, I guess. But yeah, we're ready to support the drone industry today with a product that we feel like we can easily stand by. We just want to make sure that the penetration test comes back and validates everything we're saying. As far as how you see one, so first you can reach out to us at sales@anzurobotics.com and let us know that you want to either have a demo, conduct a demo. I think more likely than me shipping units out for demo purposes, which is really a big undertaking, and I'm sure a lot of people would be happy to fly them. If you want to arrange some sort of larger scale demonstration, with public safety involved or the community to bring in some folks, we would be happy to travel, do a demonstration, kind of have a fly day with folks in your community. But individual demonstrations are really, really hard to pull off and would require an extreme amount of resources to do. But if you'd like to talk about it, reach out to sales@anzurobotics.com. We will be in San Diego next week at Exponential, Monday through Thursday. I'll be walking around, probably wearing something green, probably carrying around a green drone. So if you want to see it firsthand, touch it, feel it, go through the app and do some things there at the show, that sounds great. If we want to find a place in San Diego to go fly, that's a possibility as well. So know that I'm open to your suggestions if you really want to see something like this. But also consider that all Anzu robotic sales are going to go through the dealer network. I've been working with the reseller network for now almost 10 years. And so if you have a supplier of drone technology, either they know that they're going to be carrying this or they should be carrying this if you're interested in it. So you could reach out to them. We have a number of dealers already kind of established and more to come. So talk to your dealer. If they're local, they could likely, support you on demonstration and getting you hands-on experience as well. So yeah, just keep that in mind. With that said, we're going to hop into questions. I think, yeah, we went 40 minutes, so we have about 20 minutes left on the scheduled time, and looks like we have 75 questions to start digging through. So, Brad, if it's software related or Aloft related, I'll pitch it to you. Otherwise, I'll do my best to answer everything that you have. So, somebody asked about price. Again, $5,099 for the Raptor, $5,599 for the Raptor T. Hopefully you saw that, but now you should have heard it again. Let's see. Remote ID compliant or module required. I mentioned this as well, but the remote ID mod is all internalized. You don't need an outside module. You don't need to do anything to be compliant when it comes to remote ID. Let's see. So somebody asked when these drones will be available in Europe. Going into this project, we knew that this is going to scratch an itch more than just for those in the United States. And so we did, we're out the gate just going to be making it available for the US and Canada. We have a number of units, but we don't have like a crazy amount of supply in which we wanted to jump into international right away. But we have gotten CE certification as well as other leading certifications required for this kind of technology around the world. I can't say we've covered every country, but we've covered a lot of them. So I would say that this is something we'll be exploring in the near future of when to expand internationally. So just kind of stay up on that. We'll definitely be talking to the dealer network in Europe, and the more that you see that you have a place for the Anzu Robotics products in your markets, the more that we will be inclined to look into that. So please reach out to me, Randall at AnzuRobotics.com. Say, hey, I'm located here. We have opportunities with this sector. That really helps us make those decisions. But we are ready to achieve that once it just makes business sense as far as our production goes. Let's see. Are there types of professional training opportunities like videos? Because we just got our stuff, we don't have a lot of assets. I mentioned this at the top, but the photos that we're showing aren't branded. A lot of it was just captured when we could pry units out of the hands of the Aloft team who are doing the development on the drones and then doing the testing. So there's not a lot of assets now. but you could definitely assume that we will be making, along with the dealer network, making things available so that you can understand the product a lot more and navigate it. Yeah, just you'll have more comfort in using it in the near future. So I can't say that I have like the regimented plan of how we as a manufacturer are going to roll that out, but there will be more assets and more things available, and definitely part of the dealer network that's just what they do, the part of the value add. Somebody asked if we're blue listed or how far along the process we are of that. I do not believe, unless DIU comes to us and says we really want this to be listed in blue and we'll talk about how we can get there, that we have the intention for this to be blue listed. Um, the blue list was intended for the Department of Defense. Then it was like, well, this is really the only criteria that we have governing drone technology at the time. And so states like Florida adopted it as their list of approved drones for government funds to purchase, which I think was a mistake. And I would doubt many people, especially users, especially cops and fire departments, would say that that was the best decision to doubt like that. We don't intend for Anzu Robotics products to be used in the defense space, nor in the consumer, hobbyist space. These are industrial products used for industrial use cases and public safety. And so blue is, it shouldn't be that. And so yeah, I don't think we're going to go that route. As far as green UAS as well, I don't think we're going to go that route as well. Being completely transparent, we do source one component that's considered a critical component, which is a thermal sensor, in China. And so because of that, NDAA compliance is kind of an unknown. We would like to get there and for people to feel comfortable just because we say that, or we would be able to say it's NDA compliant. We'll definitely explore the conversation around that, but what I know is that it's not it's not our focus for this product. Our focus for the product is to fit in the world where a buyer, an enterprise, a company can't buy Chinese manufactured drones because it's either part of a company rule that they say you can't use Chinese made drones, or it's part of a legislation that's passed down either by the state or potentially federal government. If you are precluded from buying Chinese manufactured drones, this should be the option. This is like the very obvious option for this class of drone. But if you need something blue, if you need something green, there's a whole slew of other manufacturers that are supporting that space. And that is, not necessarily where we're intending to go. Hopefully that answers that question in a comprehensive way. Will this drone be compliant for Florida rules, which is a different question from a different person. It could be. I know that there are drones that are not manufactured in the United States, not part of Blue List, that are being used in the state of Florida by public safety agencies and others. And we are quite clear about our cybersecurity disclosure. We have shown how we're making it, where we're making it, how the data is secured, and what certifications are behind that. If you go to our website, anzurobotics.com, there's a tab that says security or data security. If you go into that, you can download that security disclosure, putting, the drone in someone's hands and saying, look, this is where it's manufactured. This is how the data is secured. It's not Chinese. It's not owned by any Chinese entity. It doesn't have that complication. I will assume that there will be public safety agencies in the state of Florida that will fly these. I'm hoping so. I'm hoping we're able to support that market because I think what they're left with is unfair for the decision to only be drones of this class that are priced outside of what we're able to get these for. I think the quality of the drones are great, the companies are great, but I still think that there should be options that are more affordable. So I'm hoping that the state of Florida and others that have this kind of legislation will open up to this. And I'm willing to talk to anyone and everyone that would listen about how these drones should not be precluded or kept from the hands of public safety agencies as well as enterprise in the state of Florida and others. Can we make questions visible to everyone? I don't even know if that's possible. Someone asked if I can make the Q&A stuff visible so that everyone could see the questions asked. I don't think that people would want that just because their names are associated with the questions as well. So I don't think that's possible, and it's not going to happen right now because I don't want to try to figure it out. Okay. Someone asked if we're only going to sell to enterprises or will consumers have access, and if we'll sell on the website and selling different platforms. So I'm going to answer all those real quick. We will sell to anyone that can legally and compliantly fly these drones in the markets that we serve. Whether you are an individual, a drone service provider, a small business, a large business, a public safety agency, we will, if you can fly these legally, we'll sell them to you, and we encourage you to use them as long as you're using them within the prescribed or expected use cases and not doing crazy stuff. Obviously, that's a given, but I guess it'll be said. Will we sell on our website? No, we're selling only through the reseller network. We're not intending to sell anything direct to the end users because we think that the reseller network is so important in providing local support, technical support. It's a force multiplier for everything that we're trying to do. I trust those folks. I've worked with them a long time, and I know my limitations. So you won't find anything for sale on anzurobotics.com, but if you go to the leading resellers of drone technology, I'm sure that you'll be able to work with them to secure something. And then the last question is, do we plan on selling different platforms? What we know is that we are able to build drones in a high quality way and secure the data with our partnership with Aloft. I would say that our roadmap is not extremely clear because we want to see how this works first. There was a significant amount of time invested and resources invested to get to this point. And if we build too much too fast and we don't know what's going to happen with, can the state of Florida buy these? Or is there going to be a push from legislation to take our legs out for whatever reason? That we want to just give two products out now, a thermal and a non-thermal version, and then we'll see what we do in the future. But we definitely intend to stick around for a long time, and this definitely is not a one-off product. It's in our dreams and our plans as a company. Sorry that there's nothing software yet. Brad. Someone asked if there's HDMI out. Yes, there's HDMI out built into the controller. I have a controller in my hand, and the HDMI out is underneath this flap. No, it's at the back. Just kidding. So HDMI out is there. Let's see. Do we plan on having different models? I answered that. Let's see. We can be consumer or government focused. I mentioned that we're not necessarily consumer focused, but we're definitely on the industrial and enterprise type operations of drones. Where do Someone asked where I see the drone industry going, and Brad, honestly, you could answer this if you'd like as well. I think that right now, if we're talking about the industry as a whole, beyond visual line of sight is the most important thing for us to get to the next phase of where aerial robots are going to take the world. This technology is literally changing the way that we operate as human beings. There's things that maybe seem silly now, like getting donuts delivered to your house or your groceries or something like that, which maybe during the pandemic maybe could have been seen as more valuable, but there's also medical delivery of blood transfusions and transplants, and those things are hugely critical, and drones make them so much faster, and it makes it so much more efficient, and especially when we're talking about the third world where the infrastructure is lacking. So that's a small example of where beyond visual line of sight plays a huge role. Also, utility inspections, gas line inspections. Is that the anyways, long linear inspections where it requires you to fly down a corridor. Beyond visual line of sight is really what unlocks the next phase of drone technology beyond Anzu Robotics launching their products and changing the whole game, which is a joke. But yeah, there's the drone industry needs to be able to be unleashed a little bit to be able to accomplish what we can already accomplish with existing technologies. Brad, do you want to add to any of that? Oh, you're muted. Now you wait.
Yep, I'm just gonna stay off mute now. I'm not gonna do that again. This is
Sounds
ridiculous.
good.
No, I support what you said. I think BV loss, things like that, definitely around the corner. I mean, from our perspective, we've been developing, fleet management, our bread and butter for a number of years now. I think that if you looked at the focus of our development going forward, it's around airspace management and how do we get live telemetry from multiple feeds, sensors, drones, and how do we get that coordinated airspace so that people can, you know, do the risk assessments to enable BV loss. Let's start with shielded operations that support that. And then how do we look at reserving airspace volumes and showing live telemetry of the, and those component pieces to, true UTM, which is, definitely where we're focusing going forward.
For sure. And I would say like during the earlier parts of my career when I was, launching the Phantom 2, Phantom 3 type products, there were, flight time was I got you, Brad. The flight time was like a big ask. And I know that there's been a lot of looking into doing like hydrogen cell powered drones, gas powered drones, things like that to give you longer flight time. 45 minutes of flight time, I think, is insane. 9 miles range of control is I don't know why you would need 10 or 15 or 20. I think that LTE 4G type stuff accomplishes that. I know that Paladin Drones has made a module to make it so that you can make a lot of leading off the shelf type drones be LTE compatible. So there's a lot of ways that we will address some of these things that are like technological advancements, but it's really not what's holding us back anymore. What's holding us back is just public perception, uh, legislators understanding the truth about what this technology is and what it does, and the safety and the amount of the number of minds that are working on protecting data and making drones so they don't hurt people. And so I think that it's really like we're at an educational phase where the technology is pretty dang good. But can we win over hearts and minds of people that don't necessarily that resist this kind of technology, or don't care about this kind of technology and make them understand where it's truly valuable? Okay, someone asked about the temporary photos that are up and can we get more product photos? I assure you that by middle of next week, there will be more product photos that are of the production units available. Like I said, we used what we could, but these products are real. This one is one that is just like the one that will be sold to end users. But yeah, there's no photos of them yet, so they're coming. Someone asked a question about, they said, is this a US made and US operated system? And are there any ties to DJI or China? This company, Anzu Robotics, which I'm the CEO of, is an American owned, entirely American owned company with no ties to China or no ties to DJI in the ownership structure of that company. There's no profit sharing. There's no reporting of ongoing activities to anybody. Anzu Robotics is responsible for these products, how they operate, how they perform, and the security of that data. We've worked with Aloft to do this, but at the end of the day, this is now an Anzu Robotics problem. What you experience using our products, what happens while using our products, is our responsibility. So there is no additional layer of control. There's no additional layer of responsibility. It all starts here in my little home office in Salt Lake City, Utah. It's all part of the US, under the US legal umbrella. Anything that I'm saying to you is true, and anything that I'm promising to you is true. And I've said this over the last few days, but if I am part of an international espionage uh, project, I'm in big trouble, and I know that, and I admit that, but that's not what this is. We're trying to provide world-leading technology made in the United States, secured in the United States, at a price that people can afford making fleets around. That's simply all that you're seeing. So I'm trying to answer the question as transparently as anyone could or would, but yeah, this is licensed technology. Beyond that, there's a lot of licensed technology probably around your house with brands that you trust and recognize on them. I think that covers that. Let's see. How did you come up with the name Anzu? I'll just say there's a lot of back and forth, and usually you're looking for something that's an interesting story and it's able to be registered and isn't confused with other things. So it's really just came down to a vote of people that had votes. But Anzu is a mythological thunder bird of some sort. You can Google it. Um, what does the interface look like? We showed that a little bit. We'll put more out in the future of like navigating the app, but it's very familiar. And will it be compatible with drone deploy? I will say that we have access to an SDK. We are still trying to figure out how the security that we're putting on the drone then gets passed on to third parties that might put their software around it through an SDK. And if then it's the same, or if that needs penetration testing, etc. So that's coming. Compatibility with third party app type things is a possibility, but I don't want to make any promises. We're down the road a little bit on some of that, but yeah, that's inconclusive at this moment. Someone said, where is it manufactured if not China? Manufactured in Malaysia. I think we've said that a few times, but now you know. Let's see. Please tell me about logging of flights in the app. This is for you, Brad. Not the security piece, but as a commercial user, how could it help my business? And so flight logging is something that is somewhat significant in this story and how it might be different. Can you take that on, Brad?
Sure. I mean, obviously, keeping a flight log, very important. We want to show, proficiency. We call it recency as well. When's the last time you've flown? If you're a little bit rusty, part of an organization, things like that. Yeah, flight logs are stored locally on the RC. They're also, if you're an air control customer, uploaded automatically to the cloud. You can then query and report on those things going forward. Flights can be part of missions, so you may go out and have a particular objective. We call it a mission, and then have multiple hops and see how those transpired. But it's all very, very seamless. You're just flying. The flight logs are logged and uploaded, securely. It's pretty straightforward. And then there's a dashboard reporting for, filtering on. I can search for, show me the flights that were done in controlled airspace that don't have a LANC authorizations. That would be a good thing to know, right? Or show me, how many flights this particular pilot did or the other.
Thanks, Brad. So we're at the top of the hour. There's still
Yeah.
probably, I mean, there's 132 questions that came in, so there's more. Brad, do you care to stay 10 more minutes and dig through these with me?
Yeah, I can do my best.
Okay. 10 more minutes, guys, and then anything that doesn't get answered, no joke, we'll take the painstaking time of writing these all out and sending them to everyone that registered. But your questions are really important, and I don't want to dismiss them. I've just been going from the top and working down. So now getting to the question of thermal. Somebody asked if it's radiometric. Yes, these are radiometric cameras, so you're getting the temperature measurement or the quantitative data with every pixel of the image, so you can do tuning and things like that. Someone asked if it's IP rated. No, it's not IP rated. There is going to be some level of, it's not gonna have a major disaster in weather, but it's not intended to be flown in any major weather situations. Let's see. So there was a question about setting emissivity. Yes, you could set emissivity. The thermal capability. Oh, we have something important to talk about, Brad. Mission planning. So I was going to say the thermal stuff should all be there. Everything that you would expect from having a thermal enabled drone. If you're seeing something that you're like, I really wish it had this, let us know. Maybe it could be enabled, but most of the stuff that you want to do to set your parameters for thermal is there. Mission planning. So this I did not mention, and I wish I would have mentioned it earlier. Right now, if you go and purchase an Anzu Raptor and you want to do a mapping mission, you want to draw a polygon around a space and go do a zigzag pattern, it does not do that today. Brad can attest that that project is underway. We are going to have it. We are hoping to have that by June sometime. And
Yep.
I'm the kind of person that will say that. I won't say sometime in the first half or second half of the year or Q3. Like I'm trying to be specific. We should have that enabled in June. I will answer another question as I'm answering this. We won't push firmware upgrades to you And so, and though every firmware upgrade we would do is going to be very well thought out and comprehensive because we might have to do penetration tests literally every firmware. I'm not sure, but we take firmware upgrades very significant, serious, but this would just be an app update when the mission planning is available in June. So you're not having to do anything to the firmware. You would just update your app as you do in App Store. Is that all correct, Brad? And do you want to add anything more to that?
No, that's fine. I mean, you call them missions. We have a different connotation for missions in the
Okay.
air control world. We call them automated flight plans. So if you're flying, like you say, a grid pattern or flying to a particular waypoint, things like that. Yes, actively in development, it's going to take us a little bit to do it and do it right. But I think end of Q2 is the right time frame.
Perfect. There's questions about who we license technology from. I would hope you should be able to figure that out, but we license world-leading technology from some of the best manufacturers of drone technology in the world. Who owns Anzu? I'm one of four owners. All of them are American-based. Most of them are involved in the drone industry. I'm the only one that is public because they have other things they're involved in and don't want to get those things tied up in this. So it's not a security threat. It's more just people have their own businesses to run and have entrusted me to run this business. Let's see. Um, similar. Brad, do you know, could you speak to the latency of the drone from the controller? I think that it should be what you would expect because it's all kind of the same kind of pipeline that is made from leading manufacturer of the licensed technology. So I think it shouldn't be anything different. Does that seem like an accurate answer?
I think so.
Okay. Somebody said 45 minutes is a myth and 30 minutes is really the standard. Like what these things are tested, and this is a big question within the drone industry, is how do you standardize flight time? If you fly off the coast of California versus if you fly in the mountains of Utah, you're going to get different flight times. If it's a windy day, what time of day you fly, how warm your batteries were, all how new your batteries were, you're going to get a lot of variance. So I think what happens is manufacturers just say, look, we flew it over the water one time. It flew for this long. That's going to be our up to. And that's how they report it. Do I think that that's the way to do that? I guess so, because that's how the rest of the industry does it. But until those things are standardized, you're going to get the number that is the most time ever seen, I think, as a standard. So fair criticism, but yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Um, there's stuff about API and stuff like that's a bigger conversation. We can talk about all of that offline. Um, someone asked where will the repair work be completed? Currently, we have signed up some authorized repair centers through the dealer network. I think we are willing to expand that to just make it easy at some point, but they'll all be repaired within the United States through the existing reseller network who do drone repairs currently on familiar technology or similar technologies. FAA registration still required. Yes, it is still, if you're flying these in the United States, you still have to register them like you would anything else, and you still have to be a Part 107 pilot to operate them commercially. Um, let's see. Hmm. Okay. Uh, so one thing I think of myself as is transparent and willing. I said ask hard questions. I'm going to read this question out and then I'm going to answer it. It's maybe not the one that's going to be what is going to double click on the technology, but somebody asked. Said elephant in the room. Anzu Raptor appears to be a replica of an existing market product. Yes, it's licensed technology. Both physical product characteristics and software flight app appearance. Again, yes, licensed technology. So that's by design. Why not separate your product from the negative connotation carried by existing products in the market? I will say the product, the products in the market that exist only have a negative connotation because of geopolitics, not because of performance. I will say that this product and anything that has led to the technology that is around that product is the best drone technology in the world, made by arguably the best drone manufacturer in the world. I don't see that as a negative connotation at all. I think if we intentionally tried to make it not similar, and take away from all the good that's built into it, I think that we would be doing the market a disservice for doing it just for the sake of doing it. Plus, then it would be like, what are you trying to hide? Who you're working with? You're working with a company that makes really good stuff, but you're trying to make it seem like that's not what it is. I have no problem with somebody being like, that's familiar. That's really, really good hardware that I recognize, but it's manufactured in a way that is different, owned in a way that's different. And the security of the data, even though I can't say uh, companies have not spent a ridiculous amount of time and money and effort into proving data is secure, we're doing that with Aloft and a trusted entity in the United States, and that's the decision we made. So the elephant in the room is it's different. It's the same as something. Sure, that's an elephant in the room, but I think that we are now a very trusted brand of drone manufacturing, and people know exactly what they're going to experience when they experience it because it's recognizable. So I think that it's not, I don't think that there's negative connotation involved in that at all. Um, anyway, let's see. When are we going to talk about the drone? I think we did, but if you missed features about what the drone does and what we've built, I'm sure that we can dive into that more if you have specific questions. When are they available for purchase? Like I mentioned, you can pretty much purchase them now. There's a number of hundreds of them available to be taken now or put your name on them now, through the reseller network, but we're trying to hold off on getting them in your hands until penetration test is done. Let's see. Um, do I? Someone asked if you have to have an Aloft account to fly the airframe. No, you do not have to have an Aloft account. You don't need to register. You'll be using Air Control, which is the Aloft app on the controller when you purchase it, but you don't need to have an account necessarily. Someone asked about the features, the difference between paid and not paid. I think we've covered that, but if you want more detail, you could either visit aloft.ai, or I get that wrong every time, Brad, I'm sorry. Or there's some stuff on the anzurobotics.com page as well that talks about the difference between an enterprise account and a non-enterprise account. Um, let's see. I'm digging through questions, so I apologize. Where can I buy? Most of the leading reseller network, ship date, present, we're out there. So if you want, reach out to me at anzurobotics.com, or sorry, Randall at anzurobotics.com. I can lead you to who is selling these. The story behind green, the green color. I mean, there's existing gray drones, white drones, some black drones, drones with blue stripes on them. I don't know of many green drones. I think Terra Drone maybe had a green drone, a green shell at some point. But I think that walking around with this, it's familiar. You know who it is. If someone says, "Oh, the green drone," you know what they're talking about. I think that was like our idea behind it. The green has certainly grown on many of us that have been involved in this project over time. There was definitely hesitations and talk about doing things differently, but green ended up being an identity, and I my favorite color is green, so I think that I'm happy that it's green and not fluorescent pink. But yeah, it just became part of the Raptor story. The Anzu story is the green color, and yeah, I think we're gonna stick with that for a while. Okay, so Brad, this is a good one for you. It's clear Aloft does the flight software. Where does the firmware come from?
Well, I thought that was you. Well, yeah, yes, we do. We got your licensed firmware, and we built that in. That's on the drone. We're building the software, around that. It's pretty straightforward. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
Well, what I would say is that we took firmware in a snapshot in time and then
Yeah,
controlled it. Aloft's team controls that, so it's not going to change. It can't be modified. It's basically like,
on our servers, yes.
yeah, so we were given things to make these drones fly in a way that is amazing and smooth and all of that, and that didn't need to be rewritten, but it's now contained and unchangeable by the licensing organization. Is that fair?
Yep.
How many batteries come with each kit? One battery comes with it. You could purchase additional batteries, of course, but just when you buy the drone at the price that was given, you're getting one single battery included in that. Are these compatible with any docking stations? As of today, no, we haven't tried to integrate with any docks, nothing like that. I think we're at time. Sorry, I'm okay. I'll just cut it there rather than say one more question. Any question that was on here, I'm going to type them out. I'm going to categorize them. I'm going to answer them. Probably lean on Brad for some of the information to make sure it's right. Um, Shoot, I'm going to ask one more thing, Brad, just because this one's important. Do you know if Raptor emits anything that could be picked up by aeroscope, specifically aeroscope, but anything that's counter drone? Do you know?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Yeah, I will. That's TBD, but I don't believe so either. So that was something that I swore I would answer on this. So again, I'll type them out, I'll categorize them, I'll send them via email, all the answers. And if you want to know more, reach out to me, Randall at AnzuRobotics.com. Brad, do you want people to reach out to you if they have Aloft questions, or should they just go to sales at aloft.ai?
You can hit me at Brad at Aloft.ai. There's also support at Aloft.ai, sales at Aloft.ai. Any of those are good.
Okay, perfect. Well, again, thank you for everyone that stuck around. Thank you for being part of this, supporting the launch of the Anzu Robotics stuff. There will be more. You'll hear more from me. You'll hear more from Brad. We have a newsletter that I'm sure will go out regularly. So if you sign up for that on our website, you could stay up to speed with things. But it's been a wild ride for me over 10 years, and it's been a wild ride trying to put this thing together. I'm glad to be doing this with great partners like Aloft and working with the reseller network. And really the intention is to provide really good drones at a crazy good price that do exactly what you're wanting it to do, and your data stays in your own hands. And I think we did that. Brad, thank you for being here, for the questions that you've been able to answer. I know like not a lot of them were very specific to the software, but really appreciate working with you, and hope to be answering more of your questions soon. We're good?
Okay. Thank
All
you,
right,
Evan.
Brad. Take care.
Excited.
See you, everyone.
Yep.
Bye.
Goodbye.